In the early 20th century, America was still a vast, wild land, full of secrets, buried beneath endless fields and quiet farmhouses. Among the scattered settlements of the Red River Valley, whispers spread of a brutal killer, a man who would later be known in chilling folktales as the Midnight Rider. In a remote corner of North Dakota lay a small community named Niagara, founded by families who had come all the way from New York in search of hope and land to call their own. Among these pioneers was a man whose name no one would ever forget, Eugene Butler. From the very moment he arrived, Butler stood out like a dark smudge on an innocent canvas, a bachelor in his 30s who chose to build his home far away from the town, alone on the windswept prairie. At first, people didn't pay much attention. Everyone was busy carving out their own piece of life. They just shook their heads when Butler started muttering strange things. As time passed, Butler's behavior grew more bizarre. He was convinced that every young woman in town was secretly in love with him, and every man despised him, scheming to steal his money and land. Whenever he did come to town, he avoided cameras like the plague, claiming that a photograph would trap his soul. At night, while the townsfolk lay sleeping, they'd sometimes hear the thunder of hooves echoing across the plains. It was Butler, riding circles around his property, cursing and howling at shadows only he could see. The settlers, frightened and exhausted by his nighttime rants, complained to the sheriff. But when the deputies arrived to question him, Butler calmly insisted that he was the true victim, stalked by faceless intruders who crept around his farm to rob him blind. His family in New York was finally persuaded to act. In 1904, they had Eugene Butler forcibly removed from his lonely farmhouse and committed to the state asylum in Jamestown. Strangely enough, there he became a model patient, or so the doctors claimed. He displayed no signs of violence, only spoke sometimes of sinister voices telling him what to do. In 1911, Butler died quietly in his hospital bed, taking his dreadful secrets with him. But Butler's death was not the end. It was only the beginning. In 1915, the old house was sold to a young family who had just arrived from Wisconsin. They dreamed of a fresh start on the open prairie, never suspecting what lay beneath the floorboards. One day, as workmen were digging a basement under the house, their shovels struck something hard, not rock nor wood, but bone. There, in the cold crawl space under Butler's house, lay the skeletal remains of 6 human beings, naked, their skulls smashed beyond recognition, stripped of every clue to who they had once been. Each victim had been dispatched the same way. A fatal blow to the left side of the head, then pushed through a trap door that Butler himself had built into the floor. The horror was too much to bear. Sheriff Arthur Turner, staring at the shallow pit filled with bones, knew at once Niagara's dark legend had just begun. At first, the sheriff and his deputies believed the victims were migrant farm workers Butler had killed in fits of madness, but a closer look at the bones told a more tragic story. Only 2 of the skeletons were adult men. 1 was likely a woman, and 3 were children. A family, wiped out in the dead of night and buried together under the floor where the killer slept. Who were they? No one knew. No missing family matched the description. No neighbors ever remembered seeing them. There was a glimmer of hope when a merchant from Minnesota rode in, wondering if one of the men could be his brother, who'd once mentioned taking work with an odd bachelor in Niagara. But that clue went nowhere. Decades later, when DNA analysis became possible, the police dared to hope they could finally name the dead. But when they went searching for the bones, they found nothing. The remains had been left unguarded for too long in the chaos of the original investigation. Curious locals had crept onto the farm at night to steal pieces of skulls and bones as macabre souvenirs. Other samples were simply lost or thrown away. The evidence was gone, and with it, the victims' identities were swallowed by time. No one truly doubted that Eugene Butler was the Midnight Rider, the killer who prowled his land on horseback, pretending to defend it while committing murder beneath his own floor. But why did he do it? Was it pure paranoia about thieves and trespassers? Was it the sinister voices he claimed to hear? Or was it something darker? A mind eaten away from the inside until it cracked. The asylum doctors remembered that Butler would sometimes fall into strange trances, performing bizarre acts he later claimed not to remember. He would mutter about spirits and unseen forces. If he had lived to stand trial, maybe he would have blamed demons or a fractured mind for his crimes. But the truth, the real truth, died with him. The farmhouse is gone now, long since demolished. In its place stands a storage building, cold and lifeless. But some say that when the wind howls across the fields at night, you can almost hear hoofbeats pounding in the darkness, and the echo of a madman's voice shouting curses at ghosts only he could see. No one ever found the missing bones. No one ever found the victims' names. And so they remain, trapped in the soil of Niagara, the forgotten prey of the Midnight Rider. May they rest in peace at last.